Well, I hope you dug today's video playlist. I thought it was fairly entertaining for a fairly slow week in MMA. I particularly enjoyed the Forrest Griffin preview. I'm looking forward to seeing that documentary. If the revelation of the real Forrest Griffin is anything like the behavior I've seen out of him the past few years, ought to be an interesting documentary. Anyway, the point I want to make in today's rant of the day is I wanted to respond to Rampage and King Mo's comments about MMA becoming too boring. Their basic theory revolves around the idea that fighters are under so much pressure to win that they're afraid to fight entertainingly. And this is a serious problem. What fans want is entertaining fights. What promoters want is entertaining fights. And ultimately what fighters want is entertaining fights. That's the whole point of the business of mixed martial arts, is to entertain people. And I think, here's my two suggestions. I think Rampage and King Mo have an excellent point that the win bonus, most UFC fighters, half their pay is dependent on them winning. I like the idea of incentivizing the effort to win. You certainly don't want to incentivize somebody trying to lose. That's how fights get fixed. But I think perhaps, here's my suggestion, that the win bonus should be half of, let's say your base pay is 30 grand. Make the win bonus 15 grand and give another 15 grand finishing bonus. And that way, a quarter of their pay is dependent on the fighters trying to finish the fight or succeeding in finishing the fight. They're still eligible for the fight of the night, submission of the night, knockout of the night, but rather than just coasting to a win to get their money, they've got a big 25% bonus if they can get that finish. That's one suggestion. The second suggestion is smaller rosters. I've been thinking a lot about this lately, looking back at my old favorite Pancrase League, the old days in Pride, and you see a lot of fighters coming back time and time again, even though they lost consistently. And I think that's a fine thing. I'd like to see a smaller roster in the UFC, less churn and burn, less 2 fights and out, and more thought and consideration about what it takes to be a UFC fighter. Let's cut these things into leagues. Let's make it clear that there's a B league, a C league, a D league, and an A league. And I think that once you've made it to the UFC by succeeding at the lower levels, and let's make the Fuel fights the Ultimate Fighter, let's just admit it, and Strikeforce, those are lower levels on the MMA totem pole. Not that any fighter can't beat any other fighter on a given day, and there aren't some incredibly talented fighters in those fighting on those cards or fighting Strikeforce promotion. But let's just draw the lines and let fighters know where they stand and what they need to do to project to advance to the next level. And I think once you've made it into that top tier, you should get 4, 5, 6, 7 chances to lose. And that way, fighters won't be so terrified of losing. They'll be able to take more risks and fight more aggressively. It'll also have the advantage of fans becoming more familiar with all the fighters. In Pancrase, there were lots of fighters that lost almost every time, but because just through sheer repetition and having seen what they could do and what they were made of, I would root for them or enjoy watching their fights just because I was familiar with them. And I really don't think there's any percentage in just every week, every month or however often there's a UFC, having a whole slate of fighters nobody's ever heard of before. Let's keep fighters around a little longer, let fans get to know them a little longer, and take off the pressure to win at all costs, and that'll ironically free them up to fight better and entertain us better. Just my 2 cents. Let me know what you think in the comments at bloodyelbow.com and on YouTube. If you like this sort of thing, please subscribe to the MMA Nation on YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/MMA Nation, DOTCOM. Yes, .com is cleverly spelled out. We'll be back tomorrow with the final Your MMA of the Day for the week, and I hope you're having a good Thursday. Later.